a lot of America spends all of their money on Amazon, and nobody knows who's flashing that Black Friday deal for you on your homepage.
Welcome to Postgrads. Two Columbia J School alumni walk into a bar. Vidhi, what do you think the punchline would be?
Are you also trying to clear your head before your deadline?
Yeah, that does happen a lot. Today we have Vidhi Choudhary, journalist focusing on retail business and finance, whose works have been featured in Morning Brew, Modern Retail, The Street, and so on. So, Vidhi, it's very nice to have you here today.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
So, our first question would be where did you grow up and go to college?
I grew up in India in a city called Delhi, which is the capital of India. I grew up there. I went to school there. I went to, I graduated college from Delhi University, where I studied English honors. And after English literature, the sort of natural progression for most graduates is to figure out, what they want to do. And journalism is probably one of those first early options that comes up quite often. And I feel like destiny had a hand to play in this because I didn't plan to be a journalist. It was not my childhood dream. I think one thing led to another, and the sort of critical thinking and critical analysis that we were doing as a English literature graduate in college possibly had something to do with it. I think part of it was also me being very enamored by the glamour of media. And I still think a part of me wants to do something on camera and on television. And I think my first initial bug to get into news was to be a TV reporter.
Yeah. It would be really nice when your family see you on the TV or even see the name and the title and become so hyped that, oh.
Yes, I remember still my parents, I used to write for a newspaper in India, and
Live Mint it is.
yes,
Yes.
Live Mint is the name of the website. The newspaper is called Mint, and I think there's a cupboard full of all my bylines, the print editions saved by my parents, mostly my mother.
Wonderful. So, talking about Mint, which is your first job, how is writing for them feeling like? How is the job like?
Yes, I often tell people that that's the newsroom I grew up in, if at all I grew up. It was a wonderful time to be. I started as an intern in about around 2011, 2012. I kind of mumbled into that business newsroom as part of a course I was doing. And I remember my first front page as an intern was in the first week, and it was about white goods, like
Hmm.
things, the consumer goods industry. And I remember being extremely unwell, but powering through and saying to my editors, like, they were like, no, take the day off, and I was like, no. And I would call CEOs with a hoarse voice to get quotes. And I remember seeing my name on the front page. It was the Berliner format, and so I'd got one column on the front page. And it was, I think something about that remains very, very special even today. Your first byline in the real world and in a newspaper. I think so I started covering the white goods industry, and eventually slowly kind of found my way. I actually covered retail as well for a little bit before I finally got a beat that I stayed on for a really long time, which was digital media. So India at the time, all these companies today which have massive businesses in India were just sort of entering India. So I started covering digital media, and at that time nobody knew what it was. And
Yeah.
I was given this random, like, sort of like buzzword which nobody knew what to make sense of. And I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I cover this and things like that? But I think I found my way. You find the right people, and I think that's the fun of journalism, understanding and decoding sort of jargon kind of terms for
Yeah.
a public audience. And I think even today, I think explaining things to people in a way that makes it more accessible is something that gives me a lot of joy. A good interview makes my day, and I can never kind of get off that high. There'll always be a smile on my face, and God knows I can talk even to a tree. So talking to people has never been a problem. I've never been that shy. But it was interviewing Jack Dorsey when he was on his first visit to India. I remember was such a big high for me. I was so nervous, and I'd gone with a fellow journalist. But all things considered, those blue eyes did not dent me from asking the tough questions.
Yeah.
And then meeting Michael Phelps when he was, I think, in India to do his first Under Armour sort of. He was the brand ambassador for Under Armour, and they were opening their first store. And meeting him and talking to him about mental health and things like that. I think I love the fact that journalism, no 2 days are the same. you're meeting interesting people, you're talking to interesting people, and it's the best job, and you get paid to do it. You get paid to be talking to the best people in the world. So yeah, there is nothing like that magical sort of feeling.
Right, thank you very much. So I also enjoy speaking with trees when I was comparative literature major. So if you love speaking to trees, probably you should switch to journalism. But that's wonderful background information about the beat.
Yeah.
I think after the job at Life Mint and the Hindustan Times, you come to Columbia University. So what make you make the choice to come to Columbia?
Yes, that's a lovely question, and one that I spent a lot of time thinking about before I applied. I think to call a spade, I was a business journalist, and I had made that choice while I was in India. So the idea was not to switch, but the idea was to. I was covering all of these, like I said, American companies with as a journalist from India, and I always felt like there were unanswered questions as I would report from an India standpoint. And I always knew that North America was the top priority for all of these companies. And I felt if I was able to do this course at Columbia, I would be able to gain knowledge of what the sort of focus of these companies and the priority for these companies has been as being born as America first, and how do they this growth and expansion is of course a part of their strategy, but I think a lot of the sort of crux and the basis of what these companies are fundamentally was born here. So I felt coming here and meeting journalists like Ara Swisher, who's also a J School alum, would open doors and expand my knowledge base and help me again ask the tough questions from a global standpoint. So which is one of the reasons I applied to Columbia. The other reason I applied to Columbia was it was the shortest program, and of course Columbia's comes with great credentials and brand, and that job fair was the sort of big draw in for me. And I have to say, of course, New York, the fact that it's based in New York, which is the media capital of the world, I think I'd be foolish to kind of not at least give it a shot. I didn't think I would get in, but I did apply 10 days before the deadline.
Wow. Okay.
I locked myself in my room and I didn't tell anybody, because I felt like if I told people, they'd tweak my application or they'd want me to speak to so and so, and I just wanted to go with my instinct and what I wanted to say, and I said what I had to say. And
Some do say that being journalist is exciting, and the adrenaline rushes will keep them to go to the beats one by one after another.
yes,
Yeah,
and each beat is like a life lesson.
yeah.
You learn something completely different about an industry without having to even work in it.
I would also like to ask how you manage to keep up with such a wide topic of international commerce while being like in the country. Right now, you're also doing international business, so
Yeah.
no matter this, because I don't think people do travel like every day to get all of the international titles. So how did you manage to keep up with the international business tide while working in the country?
Working here.
Yes.
So, well, my time here as a reporter has been, I would say, enriching. At the same time, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I feel like the guardrails are a little harder here. Though I have to say, my current, employer, Morning Brew, is absolutely, it's a wonderful experience. I've not had this much fun at a newsroom before this, and even in terms of the freedom that we get, we're always encouraged to pitch ideas where we have to travel. We're sent to conferences, which helps you get the sort of like on ground energy of what's really happening. Like currently all I can think about is AI. It's in every headline, it's in every story I've written in the past 6 months or even more. Actually, no, this past year everything I've written about has had AI. And I cover retail, so I write for Retail Brew, which is a sibling publication of Morning Brew, and everything from Walmart and how Walmart has completely rewired its e-commerce strategy to how companies like Google are changing the way people shop on Google Shopping. Everything is being reimagined and rebuilt with AI. But I think the common thread, like I said, with reporting in a country that is not your own, is you are putting yourself out there. You're talking to new people, you're talking to interesting people, and but it's the same job. You are asking them to explain something like how they would explain to their mother. And if you can get them to do that in the best way possible, at the same time keep expanding your base of people you speak with, how you engage with them, and then how you write that story. I think one of the things that drew me to Morning Brew was that they wanted humor in their the I remember my editor asking me, like, we like a certain kind of sarcasm, or especially when you're writing the newsletter top blurb, it has to be conversational, it has to be more tongue in cheek. But yeah, to answer your question, how does it feel to cover businesses outside India and covering it from an American standpoint? I think your key markers, what's going on in the economy, how are things shifting, and what are the sort of challenges and what is the opportunities. Those kind of four pillars remain the same no matter which part of the world you're reporting business on, on businesses, whether it's India, whether it's America. I do think culturally there's such a massive overlap between our two countries in terms of people being extremely passionate about sport and movies and things like that. So it does become easier for me, even where I come from, my roots. But I think it boils down to having a simple, meaningful conversation. Business is essentially entrepreneurship is the same. And that's entrepreneurial spirit is, again, so visible in all the small businesses in America. And I believe India has had a wonderful legacy of entrepreneurship and continues to thrive. A lot of small businesses coming out of that place as well. So yeah, it's interesting to having my experience of having covered business in both countries is wonderful.
Great. So I think as I browse through some of the titles you wrote, these are you covered many breaking news, including Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, and also some strategies, changes of Amazon and other web service applications. How does it feel to cover breaking news? What kind of experience is that for you?
Yeah, I think breaking news is very different from what I do right now. Right
Yeah.
now, I'd like to call myself a trade publication baby because I've worked at two back to back, Modern Retail, which is part of Digiday, and now Morning Brew, and Retail Brew, which is part of Morning Brew. Breaking news is a different kind of rush, a different kind of high. You're on a deadline. You're on a deadline on a day to day, like daily basis. You're writing stuff within. You're writing. Essentially, you're rehashing what's already pretty much there, but you're trying to aggregate and make more sense of it and add more context to the why it matters. You're thinking fast, you're processing things even faster, and you're putting it out there to your for your edits for your editors to kind of like clear it, and then it gets published. So it all happens at the speed of light. But breaking news is I would say the heartbeat of a newsroom. That's where the you can test the pulse of that newsroom. You can see how quickly reporters are writing what they're writing, because you want to not be the first, but you want to put important information out there in a timely fashion. So I think that core heartbeat of a newsroom really comes alive in that breaking news writing desk.
Yeah. Great. So I think another interesting beat that you were in was the e-commerce beat. I mean, when we were speaking with people, people sometimes are hard to believe that they are even using e-commerce platforms, even though they are using the platform every day to buy things. But they seldomly realize that they are accepting the service every day, and the service is actually changing. So why do you think the e-commerce beat is important, and why are you drawn to it?
Why I think it's important for even like normal people to know that e-commerce as a beat is there and thriving, is etc. is because these algorithms eventually, like what is economics, how you're spending your money. A lot of America spends all of their money on Amazon, and nobody knows who's flashing that Black Friday deal for you on your homepage. So I think getting into the weeds of that and realizing how Amazon is using AI to customize that homepage for you when you click on the Amazon app, and why it looks that way. I think it's important because it's changing how you purchase, what your first product idea is when you go to a Black Friday deal, why it says 40% off, and also knowing the math. Is it actually 40% off, or is it just, some, like, I'm not trying, please, Amazon, don't sue me. I'm just trying to give a hypothetical example that you need to be aware and self aware, because economics, at the end of the day, business and economics journalism is about helping people also spend wisely. E-commerce is how people shop, and I think that's what makes the beat very exciting, very relevant, and I love shopping.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, maybe that, but I'm not an online shopper. I have to
Ah,
say,
okay.
I'm trying now a
Yeah.
little bit to become better. I actually should be, but I've heard so much about all of this that some of it colors my judgment, and I'm like, that's not a discount.
Yeah. So, speaking of shopping, we're having Thanksgiving and Black Friday right now. I mean, I read the article that Target is, you wrote about Target using the new AI algorithm in the Thanksgiving deals. I think the even the retail world, not only e-commerce, has become very different right now.
Yeah.
I mean, from when you were still back at Columbia, it's 2019, and the COVID hit, and retail business actually and e-commerce actually became a way how people connect with each other. And how do you think the beat or the retail business itself has changed in these years?
The only way I would describe it is it's been a tectonic shift. It's exactly what you said. It changed completely during COVID, especially during 2020. Some companies were more ready for it from a tech standpoint, and some had to learn the hard way, and some had to go down, and shut shop because of various P&L reasons, etc. But I think I would equate this to the kind of shift that this is what happened when we first found the internet.
Yeah.
The internet came into existence and life as we know it changed, and how Google kind of changed the way we think about information or how we want to source information and things like that for a lay person. I think that's what happened to e-commerce during COVID. It became the only way people could get groceries. It became the only way people could get medicines. It changed the way even the sort of non-believers thought about e-commerce, and which is why some companies were better like Amazon was possibly better prepared to handle that volume of orders compared to maybe other companies like legacy retailers, which was slow to the game. Like Walmart was slow to e-commerce, and that's been publicly kind of documented. It missed that bus, which now with AI it's trying to kind of catch up. And we're seeing a very different Walmart today as compared to the Walmart that existed during COVID. And I think kudos to the team that's leading it today, because they're making the right moves, whether it's the integration with ChatGPT. And you mentioned Target has also now got a ChatGPT partnership where you can shop for Target through ChatGPT, and just I don't know, add your login credentials for your Target loyalty program or whatever, and then you can shop through Target while staying within ChatGPT. So I would say what happened during COVID and now what's happening right now is the second massive shift after COVID that we're going to see, that's going to fundamentally rebuild how a website looks, how an e-commerce shopping platform looks, how an app looks, and where you shop. You may no longer go to these apps anymore. You might just shop within ChatGPT. But this is me like hypothesizing, and I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
You are reporting all about AI in the past few months.
Yeah.
I've seen all of the titles that are based on AI. How and at the meantime, I think a lot of the people we've spoken to express concerns about AI, especially as journalists, because sometimes they threaten the job of writers and journalists at the desks. So how would you think, how would you respond to this trend of thinking AI is a threat? Would you think that it is a danger, or you think it's an opportunity, or vice versa?
Yeah, it's something that I often think about. And I wonder if my job will be obsolete in the coming times, and possibly could be. The only way I look at it, and that's just my personal point of view, is to embrace it, and to let it help you, and to not look at it as a threat. If you're going to be insecure about it, you're likely going to be left behind. If you embrace it, and if you figure out a way that it can help you with doing your job better, then I think that's a good way to look at it from a constructive standpoint, without ever thinking that without selling yourself short. You know what you bring to the table as a human being, and your experiences can never match up to an AI algorithm, or the way a software tool responds to you or writes for you. um but I mean, the famous quote that always does the rounds is, let AI do my laundry for me so that I can make the art, and writing is art. But I do see sometimes when I'm stuck and I have a writer's block and I'm looking for a transition sentence, and sometimes if I just go and put a sort of like prompt in Chat GPT, it does help me faster compared to what I would normally do, which is go take a walk around the house, or go to the kitchen, look for something, eat a snack, come back, and then sit again and then write. So it like I said, use it, embrace it, don't be afraid of it. It's here and it's going to stay. So I don't look at it as a threat at all. I look at it as a new world order.
And also talking about AI, I think there's still another trend in business reporting that as the beat of business is for the people in the industry, and also for people who individually invest or involve in the industry. So it requires precision and accuracy of information and timeliness. And for this kind of field, there are also a lot of people who are posing like about stock markets, about bitcoins and other things all online, which added with AI made a lot of information overflows. There's an overload of business information online. Every day we see about, like, people talk about stock market, people talk about what's the trends going to be, and many of the information are contradicting and opposing to each other. So people find it very, very hard to believe in believe in anything. And I think that also comes with misinformation and disinformation that makes everything worse. So what's your standpoint? With your standpoint as a journalist, what do you think of the trend, and how could the business news industry by itself cope with this?
The only thing you can do as a journalist and even as a consumer of news is use your common sense and your basic gut instinct and not follow anything blindly, especially when it comes to investments and money and personal finance. There are a lot of ways to check, accounts of people, whether they're verified accounts. Always better to go for a verified account and a person that's talking to you and not a bot. Or relying on reliable sources, like, you go to the CNBC website. There's Jim Cramer spouting stock advice all the time there. You can use those barometers. But again, when it comes to money, you should always have some sounding board, and it should be a human sounding board. And yeah, I think a little common sense goes a long way in helping real people debunk fake news on a daily basis. A journalist can do little things like link to the right source in their own articles when they're writing, even if they're aggregating news. I think that those things help going a long way in terms of spreading the right information. And of course, there are websites dedicated to just debunking fake news today and just fact checking. I mean, CNN had a whole beat that used to fact check every president's every claim in every speech. So those kind of things help because they bring fact and fiction in front of you in a specific kind of concise way, and there's one person dedicated to doing that, or maybe a team of people doing that. So I think that's one way to have a team or a dedicated beat just for disinformation. And now with AI, it should be. And I think also, if your AI is writing an article for you, any newsroom, which is already started, many have started doing that. A good way to kind of like differentiate for people who are reading should be that there should be a disclaimer that this article was AI generated. And especially if it's something like stock market news, that would be a helpful marker for people so that they don't follow whatever's written through the AI software blindly. But I think I would say keep it simple. Go back to the basics and do not, common sense. I think use your common sense before following something blindly.
Yeah, on one hand, the issue there is the common sense and media literacy of the audiences, as they have to understand and select for themselves what to believe. But on the other hand, you also mentioned as a journalist should have the ethics standards to always bring the truth and bring what's fact checked. Is that like the number one rule as a journalist we talked about last time?
I think for me, it's always been to simplify things and to make business more accessible to a normal audience. And so it's always about explaining things in a simpler way, writing in a more accessible fashion. Whether it's women or men, everyone can understand it and hopefully benefit from it. Yeah, I think that's been my rule of thumb. Even when I was writing for India, I would always want to write in a way that makes business news always, at least in India, the initial perception is only men are going to read it, and I didn't want it to be that way. And things have changed considerably. I probably had no role to play in that, but that's just the way the country has evolved and things like that. But I've always felt it should reach rural areas. It should be accessible to anyone who's reading it in a metropolitan city or a rural part of the country, or a farmer's reading it or a scientist is reading it. It should make sense to everybody. So I think that has been my rule of thumb when I got into business journalism, when I knew nothing about it also.
Yeah.
And now when I have some understanding of it, is to make uh, information easier and more accessible to people,
Yeah.
and make it more fun.
Yeah.
Business is always boring. I want to make it fun.
Yeah, so our audience could check out Vidhi's stories. They're really clearly put and very
Yes.
with a very good sense of humor that you could enjoy. So as we're approaching the end, we have a last question for you. Is that there are still a lot of people who are, having different paths, who study business school or others who wanted to be journalists. So what would be your advice for people stepping into the world of journalism, especially for business journalists?
Wow. What would be my advice? See, I'm very bad at giving advice because I don't take advice. I do whatever I want to do.
That could be an advice.
I think so. Yeah, that could be an advice, right? Like, I feel like follow your instincts. They will always take you to the right place. It's like God's voice inside you telling you where to go and what to do. If your instincts say business journalism, go for it. Don't then listen to all the naysayers and who are saying this industry is not going to exist, media is over. Every year there's some tectonic shift, or every 4 years, 5 years there's going to be some massive technological advancement that's going to say no, we don't need the press anymore. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to exist. Press has always existed, it's the fourth pillar, and it will always exist. Freedom of expression is important, continues to be, and will be. So if you think you have a voice and an opinion and you want to put it out there factually, accurately, correctly, without trying to kind of like brainwash people, you should give it a shot. And your editors will tell you whether you're writing correctly or not. You'll always have fact checkers helping you out, making sure you're not putting wrong information into the world. um, and a newsroom is one of the most wonderfully intelligent places to be. You learn so much, and you get paid to to learn all of this at the same time. So it's a wonderful place to be, and it's going to be there forever. And I've had the most fun working in newsrooms. And like I said, some of the smartest people come together to put together a website or a newspaper, and a lot of hard work goes into it. And it's a wonderful place to be. So if you're interested and you want to do it, you should definitely give it a shot. It's one life, you know.
Yeah. So as we said in the very opening question, it's there are a lot of deadlines and a lot of writers' blocks, but there is fun and interest and rewarding after all of this.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Postgrads, and wonderful sort of endeavor. And all best to all of you for all of these lovely conversations. And yeah, I hope to check this one out at some point.
That is Vidhi Choudhary. Thank you very much. Stay tuned to Postgrads.